welcome to another episode of the JETforce Operator Meetup. Today we have one session set up for important and super interesting. Why don't we kick it off to our host, Ken Huizenga, who is the host for today's Operator Meetup. Ken, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, great, Kevin. Thanks for having me. Another month. It seems like a lot of time goes by, and we could have more of these. But we're very fortunate today to have Chris Krumwiede with us from Konica Minolta. And Chris and I go way back. Back in 2016, I think. I got the JETvarnish, which many of you know, and I had his number on speed dial. That was back in the days when we were allowed to call you guys, and he was always my ace in the hole. If I was stuck, he would shoot me straight, and I know he's just got a boatload of knowledge to share, and we're happy to have him. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Kevin. It's good to be speaking to both of you again. It's been quite some time. I know I enjoyed those trips out to Arizona over the years. Certainly missed those trips, but yeah, had some great times and learned a lot alongside you with the equipment. So
yeah, it was great. I guess it'd be kind of helpful, I think, for the operators to know a little bit of history. Talk about maybe when the VDP started and came out with the cameras and the Caldera. It was kind of not very user-friendly, but the products we were producing were just incredible. Since you and I both go way back, can you talk a little bit about maybe where it started and kind of where we're at today from a technology point of view?
yeah, I think really when we started with the Caldera system on the embellishment products, it was really to help maintain a PDF workflow. But then we added the barcode camera, which we're on a couple generations past now. It started with just a linear barcode. Now we can do a 2D barcode as well, data matrix and QR code. So much smaller barcode and much more data can be put in there. But it started as helping with just maintain a simple PDF workflow. But quickly evolved into being able to do large multi-page PDFs. So they would basically, that Caldera system would do all the processing for us, but then the camera system would allow us to do all the matching. So we could truly match a variable printed piece and then match a digital variable embellishment to that. So kind of like intelligent mail inserting, right? We're making sure that the right variable data barcode was going on the right variable data printed piece, if that makes sense.
Yeah. How much of the variable work is barcoded? I mean, back in the day, in order to avoid a lot of back and forth trips to pre-press, I would just keep the PDF in order, and that made it easy. And I had a lot of tricks to help me keep things organized, which we can talk about. But is everybody using barcodes now, and is it more user friendly?
Well, for sure, it's a lot more user friendly these days than it was back there, especially with the newer barcodes. They're easier to read. But I would say a lot of people were doing variable data, but they were not making their embellishments variable, if that makes sense. So it was static embellishments on a variable digital piece, a variable sheet, right? So it was the same embellishment. We were putting some foil on it, but it was always the same foil or the same embellishment. It wasn't necessarily true variable embellishment. So that's important with the barcode. When you put that on the sheet, you can actually make when you're starting to put someone's name on a postcard, on a mail, or something that's unique, you want to make sure that the right name goes on the right printed piece. But yeah, no, it really, a lot of people were doing variable data and doing embellishment on those pieces, but it wasn't truly variable embellishment. And that's certainly growing, and that's evolved into even workflow automation and things we can talk later. But
oh yeah, so that's interesting. And I have a question for both of you. For me, I look at variable data embellishment as one of the coolest things they could do with this technology. I'm a lot in the field out there, interviewing all these customers all the time. I still feel, and this is across all technologies on inkjet embellishments, it's one of the most underutilized, I think, aspects of digital embellishments. People are just, maybe they're afraid of it, or maybe they don't understand how to sell it, or they don't. Ken, you said you were doing variable, so maybe on your side you could kind of tell us what kind of work you were doing variable, and then Chris, maybe on your side, because you're out there working with customers all the time, can you tell us a little bit more about the adoption rate that you're seeing, whether or not it's something that's really being used more for workflow, or is there actual personalization going on foil? So maybe we start with Ken. Like, what kind of work were you doing that had that variable aspect to it?
Probably the biggest lot of work that we had was for casinos. And when you're talking about casinos, you're talking about people that have great databases. So their database would know that this particular user plays slots more than cards. So they would the name would be on there, and the name would be, by the way, I'd like cursive. If you can put the name in cursive on the front of the card or the message part of the card, if there's any flaws in printing, you operators know sometimes you fill in your E's or you have a little bit of problem here or there. A cursive name really hides a lot of potential minute flaws. And then the offer was specific to what the person played at the Players Club. So you might see a graphic that's a slot machine. You might find a queen of hearts for the card players that have the heart in gold. But again, it's so important because it's such a valuable piece, right? You could be putting a piece of printed material through your machine 4 or 5 times to get the varnish, to get the variable, to get the stuff on the front and back. So that was it. And then we started to push it a little bit more toward, hey, when people go to their mailbox, obviously they're going to notice foil right away, but they're also going to notice when their name is in gold. I mean, you operators probably know this already, but the old way for doing that, there really was none, right? You would have to order individual dies with individual names. You had to find something static to bring up instead of something unique and that hits home. So putting somebody's name in a foil or in some special pattern is just, it's gold, and it's worth so much. It could be a 20% increase in response rate.
Dude, Ken, I'm just going to throw out this little anecdote. When I was working at MGI, we had this idea to make these calendars. And I don't remember if you remember that calendar with the snake and the apple and that. And so that was like a really cool calendar. And I got the name of all the people we're going to go visit on our sales call. So I'd go to Germany or to Belgium or wherever, and I'd get those calendars personalized with the owner's name. And I'd give it to them. Wow, this is phenomenal. It was funny, like 3-4 years later, I'd go back to the same places and they had bought a machine or whatever, and guess what was still up on their wall? It was like a 4-year-old calendar where the dates were totally off, but it had their name in gold, and they just couldn't bring themselves to throw it away. So I totally agree with what you just said, and I've actually witnessed that firsthand. Chris, what about you? Can you tell us a little bit more about like what you're seeing on the adoption rate from your users out there, and whether or not it's mostly about personalization or is it mostly about workflow automation?
Well, I would say that it started out, several years ago with more workflow automation. Just customers doing high volumes of short run work, automating that for them. But in the last couple of years, we've really seen a significant adoption in that direct mail space, where like kind of speaking about, where we're putting on someone's name in foil, right? And just those customers are seeing significant returns on that little investment that they've made, right? So they're getting huge response rates that have actually had to pause some of their programs because they're hitting their marketing budgets pretty quick with it. So yeah,
that's great.
I remember way back when one of the first things I ever saw was a Konica Minolta postcard that they sent out for, I think it was a San Francisco Giants baseball game. And it had an offer on it, and it had everybody's name on it. And I did get one, and it just, I didn't have a JETvarnish yet. I was mind boggled by what I saw. How are they putting an individual name in foil? Right. And there's no other technologies that can produce that kind of work. So the fact that it's undersold, it's a little hard to understand, but there's a lot of complexity to it, and it's not easy. It's not easy for operators.
There's a boogeyman to it, right?
What?
There's a little bit of mystification. Is there a little bit of a boogeyman to variable data foiling?
There is, but with the technology, obviously, you can pick up the right record and put the right name in the right place. That helps a lot. But the real problems come in with it is from an operator point of view when you have a defect. So we did a lot of 4-up postcards, and they were variable on the back because they would have the customer's name. They'd be ready to go to the post office, and they would send me 4,000 records in one file.
Yeah.
So let's just say you cut the barcode off, you cut the sheet down, you get your 4-up postcards, and you're starting to wonder when a bindery comes and cuts a card wrong and they need record 1367.
Oh yeah.
So we're not talking sheet 1367. We're talking one individual card 1367. So, we started to figure out some things to help the technology along by numbering each card on each sheet with a hidden 1 in the corner or a hidden 2, so you know it was sheet 2. Because what we were doing is we would have to take 1367, go back to the Konica Minolta toner device, search for that in the PDF, and come up with every zip code, every phone number, every address that had that in it. And sometimes just to reproduce one card, you'd have to, go hunting for it. So that was a shortcut for us. And then you have to remember too that could be as many as 4 passes on one sheet.
That's right.
So as an operator, man, you have got to be on your game. Do not do this on a Monday when you're dragging, right? Wake up on Tuesday, have a little caffeine, pay attention, and every record that gets messed up or you get a flaw or a scratch or a curl, it's brutal. So the operators to me have the hardest part of the job. Pre-press, yeah, they're going to struggle a little bit, maybe getting all the information you need. Getting that barcode on, I assume it's easier now, but it was tough to get everything nailed. So the skill level of your production crew has got to be on point.
So that's fascinating because I think also a lot of printers don't know how to charge for that premium as well. They're just charging a setup fee or an extra setup fee. They're not taking into account a lot of the things that you just said. Chris, tell us about some of some of the tips and tricks, because you have a lot of operators that are watching this right now or are going to watch the replay or going to read the transcript. What are some key tips and tricks that you would kind of like want every JETvarnish operator out there to know when it comes to variable data?
With variable data, I mean, it's just like, printing the embellishment, right? But it's keeping track, like Ken said. And we have some amazing operators out there. Ken was certainly one of those at some point. He took on ownership of that and, man, did some fantastic work. But I think a lot of the customers out there have figured out how to, when you get into a project like that, how to make their life easier. So how do they standardize on, what they're printing onto, right, and control what they can. They're not just taking, everyday random sheets, printing something different, right? It's kind of a standardized workflow where they're printing on a known material, a known coating, known ink, they've got the press dialed in, they've got the corona treatments, they know exactly where to set the machine. So it really comes with experience, and a lot of these operators are figuring this out really quickly. They know exactly how to run that machine, what settings to use. So but I think the big thing is being able to track, a variable postcard or a piece, right? Is you got to put something, a record on there to identify it quickly to go back and reprint on the digital side. But if we're putting a barcode on the sheet, you could just print that one sheet off your digital device, whatever that might be. Load it into the feeder. That barcode scanner is going to read it and automatically pull the right record. So you're not having to, it almost becomes, obviously you've got the multiple passes part, but it's going to automatically go and find that right record for you. So it's going to match it. So you're not having to dig through the PDF, so to speak, like you are on the digital side. Say I want to print, page, 253 out of 1,000. As long as we got a barcode on there, it's going to go ahead and read it and pull the right mask file and match what that piece is. So we, on that side, that kind of plays into the workflow automation, right? So not only going to be sure that the right embellishment goes on the right piece, it's going to go and pull that right mask for you at that time.
And what do you guys think that most people get wrong when it comes to variable data?
Well, I think the big thing is what we talked about earlier about is you put a static embellishment on top of a variable piece, right? You're not doing a true variable embellishment. So I think that's the one thing. And with the adoption of digital embellishment, obviously it's taken off. It's been successful in the industry. And I think the variable side is just lagging, but it's coming. Certainly, people are figuring out that anything you could do right on the variable side, you could do on the embellishment side too, to some extent.
Yeah, Kevin, you asked a little bit about pricing and selling it. I I think it probably, you don't have to include a whole lot more than you would a multiple pass embellishment job. But what you do need to take account for is that you're going to have some reprints, you're going to have some mistakes happen, you're going to have a little bit more waste than a normal job. And I think that's where you get into, okay, if we have to reproduce 8 cards in a 4,000 run, what kind of time is that going to take? And do we need to pad a couple of extra labor hours? It doesn't need to be overthought and overcomplicated. You just need to know that, every person on that mail list is going to be, the buyer is going to expect that every one of those pieces is good. You're not going to be able to cheat and just blow a graphic on it and go back.
You're right.
So you need to just incorporate, be smart and know that you're going to need some extra time.
So that's more on your cost of production, but I think the perceived value of that piece, like you guys were saying, like if it boosts my response rates by 20%, like I would expect a printer, I would hope a printer to be able to understand what that variability can do to my customer's value perception and their customer's value perception, and be able to basically charge what the perceived value is, not just necessarily that's going to be an extra $100 setup fee or something like that for variable. And
that's to cover your costs on the inside. You're right. But on the outside, just imagine that particular person at a casino is brought in. They actually show up because that message hit home to them and they thought, man, I'm going to take advantage of this offer. I mean, when's the last time you walk into a casino without at least $200 or $300 in your pocket? And, those places aren't built on winners; they're built on losers. So, what's the value there, right? What a $275 postcard to gain $300 in slot play?
Right.
That's a no-brainer. So you need, and the same thing for nonprofits, right? Somebody's going to look at that and go, "Well, I was thinking about sending you money, but I must be really important to them. I think I'm going to write that check, or I'm going to go online and take care of that."
That's such a phenomenal market, by the way, for variable data foiling that we're seeing, is that nonprofit. We talk to Matt Redbear all the time, and that's a big part of the work that he did for a very long time. Okay, what else should we talk about on the variable data aspect? I mean, is there?
I would like to know from Chris, since he's more of the advanced help, when he gets called from operators about issues, what are the common issues, and what help do you give them?
For the most part, it's just setting up the automation, the barcode workflow. So as long as we're getting the embellishments on the piece, we'll process them through the Caldera system, and then making sure we're reading and pulling the right file. So a lot of times it's the initial setup, creating that initial workflow to be able to read the barcode and pull the right mask file. Once that is established, it's very repeatable. So once you really get your first variable data piece under your belt, it's easy to repeat it. So I would say a lot of it's on some of those first runs, just getting your workflow set up.
And what kind of tips and tricks on the Caldera have you found? So like naming and identifying what layer is what in the PDF. Like, can you talk to us a little bit more about some nice little best practices that you found to be very helpful on the Caldera side?
Yeah, so it really ties into the naming convention of your file. So just to keep it seamless, we'll recommend for our digital embellishment products how to name the file appropriately, because it's going to pass it right through. So when we process that, you're going to get, if it's a 1,000-page PDF file you're giving us, you're going to get 1,000 files on a Caldera RIP, and they're all going to be named sequentially. So it's important that, I've had customers implement into like their switch workflows upstream to where it is automatically putting that barcode down, creating that naming convention of the file name and which page number it is. That's it. Really, we want to know what file, the name of the file, and then what page number. So we'll work with you on making sure upstream the right information has been put in the barcode. Right. And then we'll set it up on the system. So I think that's really it. It's actually not too difficult. Really, I think it's more in how do you leverage your data, right? We know people have been leveraging data for their variable data jobs, very heavily over the last so many years. How do we translate that into embellishment, right? How do we make every embellished piece unique and impactful. Going over, even over and above just putting someone's name in foil, which is very impactful. Right? How do we take that data and create something that's different and unique?
Chris, when Konica goes in and you sell a curio shine or a machine now, I know when we bought, we were trying to work with how we handled our own variable data and trying to marry it with what we needed to do for the JETvarnish at the time. Is Konica Minolta offering anything to handle variable data? Are you selling a secondhand software to be able to do that, or what do you recommend?
Yeah, we have our own variable data package, a Curio Pro VDP that we do offer, and it'll handle, creating all the spot colors for those masks that we need. Just like any variable data, when you merge a job in InDesign, you're going to tag what you want to be variable, and then we can pass through any of the, the spot colors, fonts, typeset, themes, whatever you might have in InDesign, it's going to automatically pass that through. But we're not necessarily limited to, our Curio Pro VDP package. There's a lot of other variable data options out there, and we work with those just as well. But yeah, we do offer our own package as well on there.
Awesome. It sounds like you've had to bring the world all underneath your umbrella to make it easy for you guys to work with.
Yes, yeah, it's really about the file setup. That's the big thing, and we can work with most software packages out there. We have not had any limitations on our end. That's the beauty of having the PDF workflow and just kind of a standard barcode that's used out there in the industry, pretty standard.
Very cool. Okay, so I think we've gone through it, and just kind of curious, Chris, like, do you see like the majority of your customers have a Caldera, or is it something where if they want to get into embellishments, like they can reach out to you guys and get that as a retrofit, or how does that work?
No, it's pretty much standard these days. Everyone is getting the barcode reader and the Caldera system. So it's to keep it simple, right? That's the name of the game, because we don't we want to keep it simple for our operators. You don't want to have to hire the most expertise. You want, maybe expertise is spread throughout the organization, right? You don't want them spending all their time trying to figure out and run the digital embellishment, right? You want to put it upstream into the design and development, right? Let's let people do what they do best, and keep the equipment simple. So, the Caldera and the barcode system has become almost a standard at this point.
That's great.
I have another question about where you're finding your operators. Are pre-press operators becoming the best curio shine operators, or are production people still the best with the guidance of pre-press?
That's a great question. All the above. There's very talented people out there coming from all aspects, but I found kind of the younger crowd that's very comfortable working with a computer, right? Running the machine's easy. It's knowing the tweaks or how to set up the files or how to make things look good. The people out there that really have an aptitude for software and do some light Photoshop or some light photo editing, especially with how we have our scanner and their interface. Man, it's some of the younger kids these days are really just adopting it too. But there's strong operators all across. It's just the willingness to learn something new.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of important too that they understand the whole production process too, because you got to keep in mind how that stuff's going to dry, where you're going to put it in bindery, how you're going to get it cut. I think it still takes a well-rounded person to make a great operator, but I hear what you're saying, that the young people are coming in more ready for this technology, and I think that it's important though that the operators understand the whole process, because what you might be able to do, handing it downstream to make sure that gets out the door or into the mail smoothly, it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow the whole process through and know what's going to happen to that piece. 100% to have some industry knowledge there, to have worked in a shop and maybe seen those different steps and some of the challenges, that will go a long way.
For instance, might be, I personally feel you do not want to be guillotine cutting anything variable. Sometimes the top sheets, even with the most care and the foam pad and light clamp pressure, you put marks in them, and then all 4 or 5 cards are gone. and you're back to square one again. So I think single sheet cutting is crucial for VDP. I think if you're going to be great at VDP, you need a single sheet cutting solution. And those are the kind of things that you better make sure you understand before you get into these really valuable pieces. You could be talking what, $2 to $3 a piece of mail, and the last thing you want to do is have to reproduce them.
Yeah, they're certainly selling for a premium. That's for sure. I think, yeah, and a lot of these jobs do seem to be shorter run, even if they're variable data, right? They're very targeted, toward their marketing, but they're not, they can be, and we certainly have to have those out there where they're tens of thousands of pieces, but a lot tend to be on the shorter side. And so, but you do have to have a plan on how you're going to finish that, whether it's in small, very small lifts, taking into account, that raised dimension to the piece, or with some sort of, a slitter cutter type device. Yeah. We got customers doing both.
When you had those variable pieces multiple up like that, like I said, and you cut the barcode off, and you're wondering which card is which, having your runs in like 100, right? 100, you divide that by 4, the math is easy, you know where record to find that card on. So what you're saying is right. The smaller batches are just so much more user friendly for an operator.
Yeah, make it into something manageable for you.
So I have another question, and this is a question I think Ken likes to really talk about a lot. And Ken always harps on the importance of preventative maintenance. Like we're always talking about, what do your air filters look like? What does your room look like? What is the temperature at? Where are you storing all this? Where are you putting your liquids? All that stuff. Is there any preventative maintenance that operators should be aware of when it comes to either the Caldera rip or the camera or anything like that, or is it pretty just kind of self-explanatory? No real maintenance needed.
It's more on the machine, just taking care of the machine how you normally would with the Caldera system or with our barcode system. They're pretty static, it's not a lot changes with those. So and with it being Linux based, it's the Caldera system is very, very reliable, right? It's sometimes you need a quick reboot, but it's working or it's not. It's pretty easy. Yeah.
Right.
Chris, what about that? I mean, you talk about file management, keeping that Caldera working well. How many jobs do you keep on hand? How many do you keep at the press? What do you recommend? Do you recommend that those files get pushed back and keep your system clean, or do you like to keep them at the machine?
Well, once they go through the Caldera, they really they pass through. They're not being retained there, so they all end up residing on your digital embellishment piece of equipment, and it's that simple. So we certainly recommend that you don't keep thousands of jobs on your your user interface. It's just a lot to manage and go through. So at some point you got to have some sort of process to manage old jobs on there, but nothing really gets residual on that Caldera system itself. That's all really a pass through.
No, but on the machine itself, I know that variable data jobs probably once they're out the door, maybe keep them for 30 or 60 days, but the data is all going to change. You're probably never going to have that file again or need to access it again. So I wouldn't hold on to those big files too long on the machine interface.
No need. Yeah, after it's mailed and that project's done, you doubt you're coming back to it.
Well, that's
so,
the
you
question. Like, Ken, you used to work with a lot of casinos. Would they contract or in the contract say, as soon as the job is run, you have to delete the data, or is that something that is done out there, or is it more open?
At the time, if you were a trusted vendor, they got comfortable with you, right? And we did keep it clean. We did delete the files. We did move on, and it's really the players club people are going to change. The offers are going to change. There's no reason to really hold on to it. So we're real quick to get rid of that information. And they a lot of places actually have the process that they want you to follow. So and you sign on to that. So if that's the case, that's what you do. So they kind of build that in.
Well, actually, that's kind of an interesting. Now you have me thinking. I wonder if the usage of VDP is much lower in Europe because of GDPR compliance. You don't have direct mail really in Europe. You can't really send somebody a marketing email with their name on it, compared to here in the United States where you can do that because the laws allow us to do that. So that'd be interesting to kind of talk to some of our European colleagues and find out, what are they using variable data for, and if not for the direct mail stream. Interesting. All right. Well, listen, guys, this has been a phenomenal discussion. Chris, if you have one piece of advice to give to operators who are listening today, last word, what would you tell them when it comes to variable data?
Wow. I mean, leverage the data you have. This is more, going towards the maybe whoever's putting the piece together, the marketing departments, the designers. Man, how do we, let's find a way to leverage the data that we have, like we've done for direct mail over the last so many years, right? Let's think about, not that putting someone's name in foil isn't impactful, because it definitely is, and it's proven out to give significantly higher response rates. But what can we do to leverage that data and find ways to do unique embellishment to direct to that consumer, right? How do we leverage that? I think that would be my biggest suggestion is think about that.
Very good. All right, Ken, anything else that you wanted to let the community know?
Just that if you get really, really stuck, the Chris and some of his help that he has at Konica Minolta are super knowledgeable. Don't hang out too long. Don't shut the machine off for 2 hours. These guys can be found. It might not be as easy as it used to be, but they're so smart and they've got such well-rounded knowledge that please don't struggle. Use the help that they have.
Right. Chris, what's your cell phone number so everybody can call you? No, just joking. Don't do that.
Ken used to have it on speed dial, but no, yeah, we've grown our team significantly, and they do a great job. I mean, they're manning, our support system, all day long, during business hours. So there's always someone to take that call, and I think all of our customers and operators know, once they've interfaced with our team a little bit, they know and can trust that someone's going to answer and help them out.
Very cool. Well, listen, thank you both for such a wonderful episode today on a lot of important information. Chris, we really hope to have you back on the show more regularly. Actually, I think that it's if you're comfortable doing these kinds of things, we'd love to have you pop in with us and have a conversation with Ken on all things JETvarnish related. Ken, we got the same thing next month. We're going to be announcing the dates here towards the beginning of the month, but next month is creative packaging with embellishments. So we're doing packaging May, if you will, and looking forward to some good conversations on operator best practices around May. So Ken, thanks again for hosting a wonderful show. Chris, as always, phenomenal to get to interact with you, and we will see you guys all next month. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin.